Welcome back, everybody. This is part 2 of the rebuild video for my new Rockwell Delta 22-101 thickness planer. It's 13 inches cutter block. In this video, we're going to go through the gear system, the shifter, the switch, chip breakers, the rollers, the cutter blocks, and there's quite a bit of talking in this one. So if you have this machine, you may find quite a bit of it to be beneficial. And if you just like to rebuild machines yourself, there could be some good information in there. So I did leave everything full length for the most part. Some of it's sped up, but mainly the assembling sections. Yeah, so enjoy the video. Okay, so here we have the cutter block for this machine. Now, a few things I noticed right off the bat when I took this out was, actually even when it was in, was it's a fairly small cutter block. When I compare it to my Wadkin Green joiner, my 12-inch joiner, it's actually quite small. So I'm kind of wondering how that's going to play out in the cutting quality. It's a Rockwell, so I'm not expecting it to work like a Wadkin. But it cleaned up pretty well. There is some pitting in it, but overall it's going to be fine. Now, the other thing I noticed while this was in it was I thought the bearings were completely shot, and the reason being was because there was a grinding noise. Yeah, it was on the side when it would spin. However, last night when I was putting this together, I noticed that it was actually this little shield here, which I suspect is just a grease shield, was actually grinding on the inside of the housing here, and that's because there's a chip on this housing. I suspect somebody's pulled this off and put sealed bearings in there. This is a 1950s machine, so I'd be surprised if it came with sealed bearings. However, all I did to fix that was find the area on the shield that it was burnishing, and I took a brass hammer and I tapped it inwards, and that worked. So there's no more grinding there. Now I've repacked these bearings, and when I pulled off the shield, the cover of the bearing, it was completely dry. How that happened, I have no idea, but it's obviously been a long time since they've been off, if they were off. So there's another crack in the housing there. So it's a bit of a shame to have that, but I don't think it's going to change the operation of the machine. So it's something I'll have to just live with. Now, some things to always remember to do is when you have a woodruff key and you're reassembling your spindle, put grease in there. If you've ever had to take out a stuck woodruff key, one of those U-shaped ones, the half moon ones, man, are they ever a pain to get out if they're stuck in there. So that went back in just fine, and it came out just fine. So it was greased well. I did have a little bit of damage on it. I filed it off and reused it. Other than that, everything cleaned up really well. The ends of the spindle cleaned up really well. So I'm really happy with it. Now, the cutter block uses these adjustable screws. So there's no springs in this, which is fairly new to me. No, that has something similar. It doesn't have, that one doesn't have, it does have springs. I can't remember. But this is also another big reason why I wanted to switch over to a different planer, because the motor hangs over top of the access to the knives, and it makes me not want to do it very much because it's hard to get in there. So this is a lot easier to do. You flip open the chip breaker and you have full access to the cutter block. So this is going to be much better for me. However, the knives have these notches in them, and I've never seen that before. And the adjustable screw has this little fixed washer on there, and it slides into the notch. So I have to get knives, and then I have to get that done, which is okay. It makes the knives a little bit more pricey, but it has to be done. So these knives have been ground past the minimum recommended according to the manual, so they're completely done, and they'll be replaced. And I'm sure it will run better just off proper size knives than I saw it, that alone. And these are chipped to hell. So the last thing I noticed with this cutter block is it's got one mismatched cutter block screw. I don't know why. Obviously got lost, and it looks like someone made one almost. I'm gonna see if I can find one, because if I can find one, I have to find out what kind of screw this is called. I'm sure it's not that uncommon, but it's probably best to buy 6 of them rather than 1 of them if I can find a similar screw. So and then I have to get the knives notched, right? So I want to get them notched to the screws that I have. So that's the knives themselves are going to be done in the setup video. I'm going to do a 3rd video here, and it's going to be for setup, because it's going to take me a week to get them, at least, depending on if I find some more cutter block screws. The jibs, the blade jibs, they thread good. They cleaned up all right. They are a little bent. How they got a little bent, I don't know. I could probably take them somewhere and get them straightened out a little bit. We'll see. We'll see how it. Yeah, I don't even understand how that happens. But I definitely need them. There's a lot of screws in this blade jib. Like a lot of them. I've never seen so many screws in a blade jib before. But that's all right. So those are the blade jibs. And they're there. They're actually there. So that's half the battle, is actually having a complete saw. So that is this saw. Now this side gets the pulley. This side goes in where the gears are. So now we're gonna go and we're gonna place the cutter block in the machine. Alright, now the fun part here. We're getting into the gears. So, retainer rings. Now, this is supposedly a shear pin. Now, if I'm correct, the manual says it's a brass shear pin. This does not look like brass. So, I don't really think that is original. Now, a shear pin will break under a certain tension to prevent damage elsewhere. If that's the case and that's not the correct shear pin, that could be a problem. I know where to get them, so I can probably find one. Now, the rest of the system moves really well. It doesn't look overworn. Anyways, I'm pretty certain that's not worn. There's one thing with the chain here, and that is this little wire that's wrapped around this link. Just appears to be missing the appropriate connector. So I'm going to need to look at exactly what's going on. This looks correct, so I don't know if you can see it from here, but you have the clip that's there, and then on this one it's almost like a different piece of chain. It goes from in between to it goes from the inside to the outside, and then it's got this like brass wire that's pushed through the connector and wrapped around. I don't think that is correct. It even looks scratched and worn. So I do kind of want to find the proper connector from that. Now if I go to McMaster Car, I'm sure I can find that. I just need to measure the chain and know exactly what chain I have, and I can get shear pins from there too. I don't know if there's specific strengths to different shear pins. You know, I'm not a machinist, but I know that's not brass and I know the purpose of it, so you know, it's not you know, it's wise to be cautious about that. So I'm going to be cautious about that, and I'm going to look into it. And of course, you got the other gear pieces. These should be identical. No, they're not identical. One's a little smaller, and they have different teeth. Okay. And then, of course, you have this assembly. Now, I haven't taken this apart. This does look like it's in pretty good shape, though. I'm not sure what part gets worn. This is the brass worm gear that everybody says is the issue to these machines. I'm not sure which part gets worn. Is it down here or is it up here? If it's down here, are the threads meant to be the exact same size all the way across? If so, then I can see where there might be considered some wear in there. If it's up here, then to me it looks pretty good. So I can't even remember how exactly what parts line up. But anyways, I have to look into the manual for that. So either way, I don't think this looks worn to the point where it won't work. If it was used for long in the machine, the way it was set up, I can almost guarantee you it was accumulating wear. And with a broken shear pin, or with an incorrect shear pin, something was going to go wrong. So we're going to find out. If that doesn't work, it's going to be a problem. Now, the reason why I think this was replaced once is because the handle on the the shifter was broken and welded on. So I think somebody was holding it down to get it to work, and I think somebody replaced it. But replaced it without doing any other work to the machine. So it was beginning to wear again. Things wear because they're not being used properly, right? Or they're being used heavily for a very long time. So how many of these were worn because they were being abused, and how many were just worn because they were old? I don't know, but if that works, we'll get it. We'll know about it. So everything appears to be fairly good. Otherwise, on the gears, I got a little bit of rust on here. I don't know if I really want to take this apart. Everything moves fine. Everything looks pretty good. I do kind of want to get that into some evaporust, but I think I could probably do it with some steel wool. So I might leave that piece together because it looks really good. So that must be where the shifter engages. It's not going to be hard to get apart. So, it's just a snap ring, so I might be able to just do that. And this should come off here. And I should put that in degreaser and make sure that's all clean and nice and look into that. Okay, so to check this, I'm going like this. So I'm measuring off here. I'm going to match its angle. And I'm going to have to just hold it. Hold it steady. You know, I can try and maneuver it to a number. I can't talk when I'm doing this. So okay, so the range is about 6,000, which is exactly where I need to be. So I just need to worry about this one now. And then I'll be good to go. Now, that's not going to work. So now I don't even know if any of my adjustments affected that, but I'm glad I found that because it tells me that the gear is in good enough shape to get to the measurements on their own. I'm going to measure it like this, okay? I'm in range there too. Right, so if I move the dial to 20. You know, I'm perfect. I'm perfect there. Whereas if I think if I move to a different tooth, I'm gonna get a different reading. Pretty damn close, actually. So let's see what happens when I tighten it down. I did move it, so. Reef on it. Make sure everything's tight. I'm gonna back that one off, hand tighten. Now my wrenches are too thick for this, so what I'm gonna do is back that one off as much as I can, or as much as I need to get. I don't know why these are tight. I'm going to check my measurements now that I've tightened that, and then I'll just have okay, now just so I can understand. It totally depends. It says I'm 10. You know, I'm gonna leave that. It says I'm within 5, 4 or 5. So I'm gonna bring this nut to meet it. Okay. No reason that should have moved anything. Okay, I'm within range there. It's not good. It's not good enough. So I'm gonna try it this way this time, and See, that increased when I did that. And that tightened. So that's too tight. Wait a minute, that's not. That's the backlash. That's the backlash. Let's try it out. So. I'm actually at 7. It says I'm too tight. I'm too tight there. And that says 12. So I'm really feel like I'm guessing here. Well, I am. Because it just depends on which part of the tooth. Right there it says 4. See? That says 9. It says 7. It says 6. This is 8. I gotta be careful that I'm not. Moving the dial. Let's see what this is. 68.5. $96. Or sorry, 6. Five. See, I can't check one that's all the way at the back. So I'm just gonna stay there because you know what? I get 10, 9, 6. I'm not getting over, so I'm gonna suspect that if I went back further, I'd get a little more. So if I'm getting under, a little bit under, then I'm gonna trust it a little bit, because if it's too much under, it's gonna grind, right? It's gonna wear. Five. Oh. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna call that set. Okay. Backlash that way. Backlash that way. We're set. Just gonna make sure everything's tightened down here. Okay, I got the chains back on. Now, I had to flip these two sprockets. They are not the same size. I noticed that, but I put them on and I didn't think to change them around to get the two chains to fit. So what I did was, this one was too big and this one was too small. I pounded out a pin that was on here, and to do that, you have to file off the what's stopping the pin from coming out, which is a little bit of a, what do you call it? You can kind of see it here. It's pounded over, so on the round edge, so it doesn't go through. I had to file that off, push it out. I tried to move the link over here and reverse it, make this one half a length longer, this one half a length shorter. And I was becoming kind of successful with that. However, I went just to double check on our video on YouTube about this planer that I actually watched when I was deciding to buy this planer. And he had mentioned that he had to switch these two sprockets, and it's exactly what I had to do. They fit great. So because I filed off a pin, I had to push it back through and pound over the edge of that pin again. It'll work, it'll hold in there, it'll be fine. This is replacing a cotter pin. It's gonna hold just fine. It's bent over, it can't come out. So everything looks okay in there. This is set well. This is set well. I think it's just under tension right now. So that is the gear assembly. Now I can put the housing back on. What I want to do, however, is the switch casing that's under here butts up way too tightly to the housing up here. So I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper and see if I can loosen that up a little bit. That way I can get into the switch without having to take off this piece. Because I do have to put a gasket on here. I'm going to have to order that. And so you won't see that in the video, but that's all right. So we're going to do setup in another video. So I'm going to put the casing back on here, and then we're going to put the chip breakers on, and I'm going to pull it out into the open, and we'll talk a little bit about it. Well, I hope you liked this two-part series. In the next one, we are going to go through all the finer setups. It'll be more general discussions on setting up a planer and tools and machines in general. I have not painted this, obviously. I would like to someday, and at that time I will get the table resurfaced, and maybe a few other things like replacing some hardware. But once this is tuned in and working, it should operate as needed, and it will go right here and replace this Rockwell machine. So I'm very excited to get to use this thing, and it was a big challenge. It was a long challenge, let's say, to rebuild this machine. Overall, I'm actually fairly impressed with the build quality of this machine. I didn't expect that from a Rockwell, really. I quite like this machine. I've owned a couple Rockwells in the past, and this is by far the best build. So now it's hard to ignore that this has been welded back on for me, but it's welded and it works. So I may at some point try and file that around and smooth that out a little bit. It shouldn't be, it should be threaded, which leads me to believe that this has been, the worm gear in here has been replaced. Now, I do not think the motor is original to this machine. It's 3-horse single phase, but as you can see, the plate is not original and the motor comes out. Don't believe that that's done from factory. But it's a big motor. It really is, and it seemed to work. So, you know, I'm okay with that. I'm happy with that. As long as it works, it's okay with me.